Rescued. White Wolf, Volume 10. Written by K. Matthew. Narrated by Hunter Millbrook. Rescued. Orion's heart pounded in his chest as he peered out towards the opposing pack's den through the bushes. Richard was in there. They had taken him captive, and Lord knows what they were doing to him. Orion only hoped he had made it in time. Once he had realized Richard wasn't going to return, Orion knew the grave error he had made by leaving Richard alone. It had been obvious after Richard's first shift that his allegiance with the pack was shaky. Jackson's dominance of him had been a false act, one that Richard played into well. They could all feel the disconnect from him, though. It was a hard choice to make, venturing out after Richard alone. There was still a lot of daylight left before Jackson and the rest of the pack would return to the den and find him missing. Jackson would be furious that Orion had let him escape. The beta should have known better, but he had honestly thought that Richard would return. Richard had been warned time and time again that he couldn't go back to living the way he had before he became a werewolf. Where else was there for him to go? The only way for Orion to redeem himself would be to go after Richard. If he could get Richard back before the pack returned and came looking for them, then maybe his punishment would be less severe. Either way, Orion would still be in trouble. Kissing Richard was enough to earn him a punishment, but letting Richard escape? Orion didn't even want to imagine what Jackson would do to him for that. Richard had been cunning, though, leading Orion on a wild goose chase where he had altered his trail. Luckily, thoroughness wasn't one of Richard's strong points. It took Orion a mere second to realize the charade once he had reached the giant oak tree that Richard's false tracks had led him to. As soon as Orion had crossed into the other pack's territory, he could feel his stomach twisting into knots. If they managed to capture and kill both Richard and Orion, it would leave the rest of Jackson's pack vulnerable to attack. They likely wouldn't be able to defend themselves with only 4 members, so Orion needed to be extra careful not to get caught. After he had discovered that Richard had been captured, Orion briefly wondered if it was worth it to try to rescue him. Chances were that the other pack would kill him. Still, if they had been willing to drag him all the way back to their den, then there was a pretty good chance that he was alive. Werewolves usually killed intruders to their territory on the spot. They must have figured out that Richard was the White Wolf. It was the only reason they would have brought him back alive. Orion almost couldn't believe he had come so far by himself to rescue Richard. The other pack was on patrol, no doubt knowing that Jackson's pack would come after one of their own. As it was, Jackson and the rest of the pack were probably on their way since Orion had not been able to return. Orion needed to make his rescue quick, lest the 2 packs converge and there be unnecessary bloodshed. He waited with as much patience as he could muster. There were 3 men patrolling the forest. Orion had spied them from a distance and was careful not to give anything about his presence away. That meant there were 3 more inside the den, including their alpha. Finally, another man left the cave. The odds were looking better for Orion, but he still wasn't sure he could take on the 2 inside, having not seen them. The men on patrol were all burly. Orion highly doubted any of them were the Omega of the pack. If he was lucky, Richard wouldn't be completely restrained and could help out. But that was a really big if. More than likely, he'd have to fight his way through both men. Orion didn't even know what kind of weapons were inside the den or the layout of it. That put him at a big disadvantage. Besides, as soon as the quarreling began, he was almost certain one of the other men outside of the cave, if not all of them, would hear and come running. Orion did his best to hold back a sigh of exasperation. What to do now?